we come to the portion where we discuss what we heard this morning. This morning, we were blessed to hear our rabbi, who we call Rabbi for Rabbi Netanel ben Yochanan. And he spoke on Parashat Vaera. And it's a good idea while we're listening to take some notes, just make a few notes on a pad so that when we come to this discussion, we can remember the things he said, because really there is so much. I listened this week to the message 3 times, and each time I hear something different, because he always brought so many things into the portion. It's like it was this time that they were in there is very similar to what I see the time that we're in now, where it is a battle between the gods of the world, represented by Pharaoh, and the God of the universe, the creator, who is the creator of all things, all people, all nationalities, doesn't matter who we are. There's only one God, and we are one family, which is what he said. And, I guess in the same way that we saw the first family, the first 2 children, Cain and Abel, one killing the other, we're still doing the same thing. Unbelievable how the heart of man has not changed. The circumstances may change. We may look to be more enlightened. We are not. We're exactly the same. And the message is so clear each and every time. So I wrote lots of notes, but if someone else would like to say something, please feel free, to give us some input on what you heard this morning. Otherwise, I'll continue. You know me, I can talk. I can't hear you, Miriam. You're on mute.
Continue, and we could respond. Sometimes we need stirring to so many things that continue, and we'll.
That's why I say it's good to have the pad to write next to. The main message for me is the idea of the free gift that he gave us, which is free will, Bechira Choshit. When he was talking about when he met people who survived the Holocaust, and they said, how is it that God could have allowed such a thing? And one of the things that he said that really hit me this time is how God limited himself. He stepped back because he could do anything. He could have wiped out Pharaoh in a moment. He could have brought us back to the promised land in a moment, but he didn't. He stepped back because he gave us free will, allowing his creation to make the right choices. And we as parents have to do the same thing. We teach our children the best that we can, and then we have to step back and let go, even when we see them making mistakes and doing things that we know are going to lead in the wrong direction. We have to step back and allow them to experience the consequences of what they're doing. Because if we always go in to try to save them, to try to pick them up from, what they do, they will never learn. Sadly, we learn from our own mistakes. I see that in my life so clearly when I watch my children now. They're making many of the mistakes that I made because they cannot see past. It's almost like, they can't see. You can't see until you can see. He talked about the addictive nature that we have, and how often have I heard someone saying, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I don't feel like changing it yet, or I'll do it when the time, tomorrow, I know. But what Rabbi was saying, it's going to come in little bite-sized pieces for us. We can change a little thing today, and then tomorrow he'll get to a bigger thing. But if we don't change the little thing today, that will keep repeating and repeating. So it's really the use of our free will. If we don't use it and we don't acknowledge that we have that gift, then we can't grow. And, there was one other thing. Oh yeah, he said, because we can't always see the things in ourselves. And we don't always have the people around us who are willing to tell us these things about ourselves because they're afraid, oh, they won't like me if I tell them the truth. But what we need to do is we need to ask, oh God, search me, search my heart, show me the things that I'm doing because I can't always see them. Show me what I'm doing and help me to see, because I know in my life very often I'll say with somebody, oh, I can see everything that they're doing. Don't they see what they're doing? But I don't see that I'm doing the same thing. And once I see that I'm doing the same thing, then I become more humble and I'm less judgmental. And I know that I have to work on myself before I can change anybody else, because we can't change anybody else. It's like Rabbi said, do you think you can put a Bible inside their head and make them see? We can't. In Christianity, they used to say you'd hit someone over the head with the Bible. It just doesn't work. We have to always look at ourselves. Both Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Hillel said the same thing. Yeshua said it one way. He said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Hillel said, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. So both of them, are very similar. One is more negative and one is in the positive. And the other thing that I heard about this, we cannot trust our feelings, because if we feed our feelings, and we all have them, if we feed into our feelings, we're going to end up by drowning in the feeling, instead of stepping back and saying, okay, what do I need to do about this? If we're drowned in the feelings, well, we won't be able to do it, because our feelings can be overwhelming, especially people who have so much feeling. In the disc, it's called the huge S. So we get drowned in our feelings, and then we can't take the next step. We become paralyzed. He spoke about, addictions. How I remember when I started smoking, I know I have a friend. Most of the people who started smoking did it not because we ever wanted to smoke. We were challenged to smoke. All our friends were doing it. In my case, believe it or not, it was because I was a hypnotherapist and I had never smoked, and people were coming to me to stop smoking. So I said, you know what, I'll try. I was always the guinea pig. I had to try everything. Thank God I didn't do that with heavy drugs, because I may never have gotten out of it. But I started and I didn't like it, but I kept doing it, and it was easy, because in those days people were smoking and there was something that was fun about it. And it's like an emotional thing. And then eventually, I said I could stop at any time. But when I finally started to try to stop, I found that it wasn't so easy. It was really, really hard. And I had to use the same techniques as I did in other things. I would go to the mirror and I would look at it in the mirror and I would say, this thing, it's so small. You are not going to control me. And I would tell myself, every time I take a puff, it's going to burn my throat. And it was like a self-hypnosis until eventually I couldn't. But the emotional aspect was the most difficult part. There was something about having a cup of coffee and lighting up a cigarette, taking the phone, lighting up a cigarette, getting into a car, lighting up a cigarette. Habits. Those were the easiest to get rid of because I knew they were habits. But there was something else that took me 2 years to get rid of, that emotional need to pick up a cigarette. And even years later, when someone would light a cigarette, I go, oh, let me just light the first one. It's very hard once you get addicted to something. So we really, really have to be careful and look in our lives. What are we addicted to? Rabbi asked, what am I attached to? What can't I let go? And at first glance, at first thought, I can't think of anything. Honestly, I can't think of anything. What am I attached to? So you really have to dig. That's where you go, search me, oh God, know my heart. Or ask a friend, what do you think I'm attached to? Well, I'm attached to comfort. I like to get into a comfortable bed. I like my humidifier. I like my aromatizer. I like it to be a certain temperature. If it's too hot, I got to open a window. If it's too cold, I got to close the window. We all have what we think we're attached to, where in a minute, it can all be taken away. In 1 second, our life can change. And then we know what we're attached to.
I think it's beyond that. I think it's not, there's a difference between being attached to something and enjoying the good things in life.
I like that.
And you're talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, I like my humidifier and all that. You're not attached to it. You appreciate it, and
Yeah,
it's a blessing to have it. But if it's gone tomorrow, of course you're going to miss it, but you're not attached to it.
No, that's true.
It's a deeper thing. Are you attached to, even while a fear is an example, is it very hard not to be afraid? Or do you react in situations almost in a way that you don't question and you just don't do it? I mean, that applies more to me. I'm attached to a lot of, things. I mean, I love this new lamp I got, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think it's really deeper than that. You have to look in yourself and see the things that hinder your growth and your closeness to God, or when it's something you find very hard to be without. Let's say it could be a little thing like coffee or cigarettes. There's nothing wrong with liking coffee or cigarettes more. Cigarettes are really bad for you, but I mean, it's got to be something that you are so attached to, it impedes your walk with God.
I thought of one just as you're talking, because we're attached to ideas, beliefs that we have about ourselves that we have inherited from our past. I was in the bath and I'm reading a series of books, and the only time that I can read, believe it or not, is when I'm in the water and my body is quiet and I can concentrate. Otherwise I can't, because if I'm out of there, I'm reading and then something else grabs me, that ADD part of me. But I was looking at this book, and I've been writing a book of my memoirs about my life and about where I am, how the past has helped me to get to where I am today. And I looked at the book and I looked at the cover and I said, could I see myself with my name and a title on a book that I have written? And I realized that I still have what's in me in my past from my dad, who constantly, my dad was in many ways brilliant, but he had no self-esteem whatsoever. He had many good ideas, but could never fulfill them. He could never accomplish them. He had no one to back him. He had no confidence whatsoever in himself. So at the end of his life, he felt like a failure. And these feelings get passed down into us. And I would say to myself, who are you to write a book? Who would ever want to read what you have to say? And yet I've told my story to many people and they go, oh, you have to write a book. Oh yeah, people want to hear that. But it's very difficult, very different putting it down in a book. And then especially in a book at a time when everybody is looking for PhDs, all these, doctorates. Who writes a book who's anybody's going to read when they're a nobody? So there's so many things that hinder us from doing things that we feel that there's something inside that wants us to do, that don't let us be who we are. And we just have to keep searching and taking the next step. Okay, what do I do? Sit down and write. Just keep going forward. Don't allow fear to grip us. And right now, we are in a world system. The Pharaoh, to me, represents the world system. And the world system right now wants us to live in fear. It's fear at every level. Oh, I can't eat this, or you have to take this vaccine or you're going to die. There's so many things that are causing us to have this fear that we can't go forward. Yes, Karen. You looked like you're going to say something. I'm sure you were.
I was thinking about, because as you're speaking to me, I remember the rabbi, he would not only, because before you were mentioning he had so much to say in one message and you could hear it a bunch of times. And I know that that sounds like he did it, but how many times God used him. And I just kind of giggle at sometimes how accurate it was in your week. You know, you would go and you wouldn't just touch base on one part, but it would be so detailed what he was speaking about that there was no doubt that God was using him. And just how you're speaking right now, it reminds me of the same thing. I'm like, here I am doing the same. I started painting. I never wanted to paint because I thought, I'm no good. But I started painting, and it was funny because I just started pushing myself right away to all my limits. I thought, I want to be able to paint water, and that's hard. So I'm going to do that first. Instead of say, oh, it's going to take me a lot of technique and practice before I get to where I want. I was like, I'm going for that first. Let me just grab it.
But it's true. We want to be, but he used to say, it's not the destination that's important. It's the journey.
Here, I made a bookmark with ocean. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's really
no
nice.
way. That's gorgeous.
And I made a little.
Wow.
Wow.
You have to teach me how to do that. Water is so
That's
hard to
really
do.
beautiful, Karen.
Karen, what do you use? What watercolors?
Watercolors, yeah. I got really into it, and I started doing that every Shabbat. It was my rest because I couldn't make myself rest. So I said, well, I got to do something for me that will relax me, like, you know, getting in the bath and reading your books.
Yeah.
Here's a bird.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
It's actually
Fantastic.
a picture of a bird that I took from my garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've just been
And-
like, it's good because it tells you, it shows you that you can do instead of listening to yourself.
Exactly. But that's
Karen?
exactly truth.
Just a question. Did you just practice, or did you look up in any books some techniques, or?
I watch techniques videos.
Because water is very hard to do. I struggle with that all the time. So maybe I should just go online and look up some tutorials.
Yeah, I learned all about the layering and how to start with the light colors first and then move into the dark color, letting it dry between,
Okay.
or else you get wavy water. But yeah, I mean, I feel like
Fantastic.
when Peggy was speaking about doing things and, you know, even talking about your dad, I feel like you're talking about me. Like, you know, and I'm at the point where I'm actually trying to get outside of my comfort zone. You know, you get to where you're like, I'm old enough, grow up, you know, like be uncomfortable. It's okay. You do have these gifts. You are okay. And then by being able to paint, it's just proving it to yourself by writing your book. No matter what your goal is, if it's in your heart to do it, even just the process in itself is possibly very, very, you know, medicinal in a way or healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Last night I watched the movie Good Will Hunting.
Oh, I love that.
And I forgot it. I forgot what it was about. And this guy literally had to be broken because he had covered himself over so much. He could not face his fears. And when Robin Williams, who played a psychiatrist, said to him, because he was badly abused. And when he said to him, it's not your fault. And he said, I know. And then he said again, it's not your fault. And he said, I know. And how many times did he repeat, it's not your fault, until he broke down. And when I heard that, I just burst into tears, because there's so many things that happen to us that we think we deserve it, but it's not our fault. And God has forgiven us. And when we realize that, that's when we can grow. And his whole life changed from that moment. It's amazing to me
I love that movie.
it was amazing. And I had forgotten, seen it years ago, and I loved it then, but I really got it this time. I really saw it's so much deeper. It's like listening to his messages. I have a friend who, she used to teach my children piano, and she was always a fabulous person to me, but we lost touch over the years. She stopped teaching, and then One day I met her on a plane. She was on her way to see her daughter who lived in Texas, and I was on the way to see my daughter in Texas. And we just connected as if it was yesterday. And that was years and years later. And then we lost touch again. And then one day, Miriam and I were at the locker for all our stuff, and I meet her again. And this time, we've stayed in touch. And she's an artist. She's an amazing, amazing artist. But she also now has become an art. She's changed an art form into writing. So her writing, when she writes, it's like seeing a picture unfold. It's amazing. We have these gifts inside and we don't know. And I've been writing ever since I've been writing for Rabbi Percy. I would start writing his reports. Then I would write his blogs for him, his drashes for him. And he always said to me, "You're a good writer." And I could never believe him because of what happened to me in school when I was in high school. You got an A badge. This one year, I was in grade 10, and you'd get an A badge if you had a certain percentage in every class. And I had a certain percentage in every class except one, and that was English writing. And I didn't get it because of my writing, and I never thought I was a good writer. So it doesn't matter what we think we are. Take a look at how God is leading us. What are the circumstances? What's he having us do? We may not even think about it. That it may not look important, but if we just keep doing it, suddenly God will show us what we're called to do. We don't really always know what that is. Anyway, I see Mauricio has been kicked off. His internet wasn't working. Muriel told me.
No, he left a note.
What did he say?
He said he had a thing came up with his.
Oh, I have to go. Problems with shipments. Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny because I was thinking of him this week, because one of the things that I'm on this special diet that I'm on is I cannot touch sugar. And I was looking at all the products that I use, mayonnaise. Sometimes I go like a little ketchup. So many things have sugar in it. It's like, and then I was thinking of Mauricio. He works for a sugar company. It's perfect for him that we're all addicted to sugar. But anyway, that's a total aside. Muriel was also kicked off. So if there's anything else that we want to add, because really it was a wonderful message, and try to listen to it again. You get so much out of it every week. There's so much. Yes, Karen. Yes, Karen.
It's going to get cold by the end of the month, so enjoy this.
Ooh, okay, Miriam, let's go for a walk.
January's gonna happen.
Shabbat
Yeah.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.